Good to see all of you. We've got a special night planned for you. Obviously, our Nicaragua mission team is back in the house and back in the States. We made it back after quite a journey. I'm sure most of you have heard about it, although I'm sure some of you have not heard about the end of our trip and how crazy that was. Even getting back as I was walking through the San Diego airport, I was still feeling like this is a joke. We're not really back in California. And I was thinking, are we really in San Diego? It wasn't until I, got out and got in the car and saw In-N-Out that I blessed the name of God, Anyhow, we'll hear more about that. But we are going to take a few minutes before we get the team up here to look at some verses in Luke chapter 9. I'll point a few things out real quickly, and then we'll slow down a little bit in Luke chapter 10. But if you've got a Bible, you can open up there. Let me share for a few minutes, and then we will get we'll get some members of the mission team up. Obviously, a bunch of them are here tonight. But we kind of split them up, so we'll have some of them up here tonight, and then we will have some on Sunday for second service, some on Sunday for third service. And so be sure that you join us, because it'll be different people, different stories, and it's lots and lots of exciting stuff and neat perspectives. And God did a lot on this trip through us, and I believe even in us. And so you'll hear some of that. But you're only, even if you're here tonight and you come back on Sunday and you hear the stories from Sunday also, still there's more to tell. So you want to make sure that you're talking to the people that went on the trip and saying, okay, so what happened, and what'd you guys do on this day, and what'd you guys do on that day, and what'd you guys do on that day, and finding out all that God did. It was a really neat trip. But why? Here's what I want to ask you: is why do we even do that? For some of you, your heart tonight is going to be what we call poked. It's going to be moved. Because you are going to hear the stories of what happened through people your age, how God used them and how God worked through them. And what will happen is next spring, you're going to be on the trip with us to Mexico. And then next summer, you're going to be saying, can I please go on the trip in the next summer? Because you're going to hear tonight how God can use someone just like you, someone who's scared just like you, someone who's hesitant to go to a foreign country just like you. And then you're going to hear that God used these individuals, and it's going to excite your heart. But why do we do that? Why do we take off and go to other countries? In Luke chapter 9 at the very beginning in verse 1, talking about Jesus, it says, then he called his 12 disciples together and gave them power and authority over all demons and to cure diseases. And then in verse 2, he sent them to preach the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. And he said to them, take nothing for the journey, neither staffs, nor bag, nor bread, nor money, and do not have 2 tunics apiece. Whatever house you enter, stay there, and from there depart. And whoever will not receive you when you go out of that city, shake off the very dust from your feet as a testimony against them. So they departed and went through the towns, preaching the gospel and healing everywhere. And then all sorts of exciting things happen throughout Luke chapter 9. It's a busy chapter. There's the feeding of the 5,000, lots of ministry. Peter has this encounter with Jesus that is really life-changing. Jesus goes on to talk about taking up the cross and following him. If you're gonna follow me, Jesus says, you got to take up your cross, your instrument of death. And you got to follow me, and we're gonna let's go together and let's die. And important point for those of us that go on mission trips. We're going to die. We're not going there to fulfill our own desires or to please ourselves or serve ourselves. We're going there to lose ourselves as we serve other people. This is the chapter where Jesus is transfigured on the mount. An incredible event. They come down from the mount, and there's a demon-possessed boy there, and Jesus once again reveals his power, an incredible event. And then as we get down to the end of Luke chapter 9, he says in verse 57, now it happened as they journeyed on the road that someone said to him, Lord, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Then he said to one another, follow me. But he said, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead. But you go and preach the kingdom of God. And another also said, Lord, I will follow you, but let me first go and bid them farewell who are at my house. But Jesus said to him, no one, having put his hand to the plow and looking back, is fit for the kingdom of God. And then it says in chapter 10, verse 1, after these things. After these things, the Lord appointed 70 others also. So it wasn't just the 12 disciples that were following him, but there was a larger crowd of people that were following Jesus. I don't know if you realize that, but the 12 were they were the inner circle, but there were others. And notice what he did with the others. In verse 1 of Luke chapter 10, after these things, the Lord appointed 70 others also. And he sent them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place where he himself was about to go. Then he said to them, the harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Go your way. Behold, I send you out as lambs among wolves. It's a big movement today. You see it on bumper stickers and on the backs of back windows of very high trucks with flags blowing off the back, something to the effect of, we're not sheep, we're not lambs, or, we're the wolves or whatever. And yet Jesus is telling his disciples here, I'm sending you out as lambs among the wolves. Carry neither money bag. Same thing he said to his 12 disciples. Knapsack, nor chanclas, sandals. And greet no one along the road, but whatever house you enter, first say, peace to this house. And if a son of peace is there, your peace will rest on it. If not, it will return to you. And remain in the same house, eating and drinking such things as they give. For the laborer is worthy of his wages. Do not go from house to house. Whatever city you enter, and they receive you, eat such things as are set before you. And heal the sick there, and say to them, the kingdom of God has come near to you. But whatever city you enter and they do not receive you, go out into its streets and say, the very dust of your city which clings to us, we wipe off against you. Nevertheless, know this, that the kingdom of God has come near you. But I say to you that it will be more tolerable in that day for Sodom than for that city. Now you skip down to verse 17 and we'll read down to verse 20, and that's where we'll close up. But verse 17 says, then the 70 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. Notice they were excited. They got back and they said, man, we have power. We have power. Power, we've got to be careful because power can corrupt, right? And Jesus sends them out, and he sent them out with power. They come back rejoicing because of that power. Oh, man, we felt the power. Jesus is going to correct them. He says in verse 18, and he said to them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. What? Can you imagine? The 70 all pumped up. Man, we just got back from Nicaragua. Thank you so much, Jesus, for sending us. Man, even the demons bowed down to us. Jesus' response, I saw Satan fall from heaven. All right. Not sure what that has to do with our mission trip, Lord. But he goes on to say, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Behold, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. There's power, all right, but be careful, because that power can corrupt, and we might see you fall like lightning from heaven also. Be careful. Nevertheless, in verse 20, he sets them straight. Do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. We go out on these mission trips, and we plan to do it every year because of the model that we find in the scriptures. Jesus had disciples. He had the 12 we saw, and then we see that he has the 70 here in Luke chapter 10. But what he does is he takes these disciples and he teaches them and he pours into them and he trains them. And then he sends them out onto the mission field and tells them, be mission-minded. Don't take extra coats and jackets and chanclas and, all the things. He says, I want you to go out and I want you to depend on me. Go out and depend on my resources. So that's what we do. We commit ourselves to the Lord and we say, Lord, if you want me to go, then we pray that you would provide the money, and then he does that. He provides the money, and so then we go out, and what do? We go out and we preach the gospel, and we serve and knock down walls and paint other walls and sweep and breathe in pounds of dust, minister to little kids with runny noses and lice in their hair, and we get dirty and our backs hurt and we smell and we get stuck in airports, and why do we do all of that? Why do we go through all of that? We go through all of that because that's the model that we see here. And then when we go, we are filled with joy also. We get there and we realize, wait a minute, God can use me. I'm 15, I'm 17, I'm 18, and I can't believe that God can actually use me to bless somebody, and you get to experience all of that. And you see God use you, and that's why we go. We go because we see it commanded in the Great Commission. Go and preach the gospel, make disciples. And so it's part of that. That's why we're going. We go because we see the model here, and we try to follow that model. Imperfectly as it may be, this is what we're doing. We're trying to go out, and we're trying to be laborers, and on this trip, that's absolutely what we were, or at least what they were. I did a lot of overseeing. Someone's got to stay clean and oversee. Wherever I could, I would get my hands in there and get a little bit dirty and get some work done. But we do it because we see it in the scriptures. That's what we do at this youth crew. We read the Bible, and then we do our best, again, imperfectly as it may be. But we commit ourselves to doing what we see in the Bible, and we go, okay, love your enemy. Okay, I need to work on that. Lord, help me, and that's what we try to do. We see the 12 being sent out. We see the 70 being sent out by Jesus, and so that's what we do the same thing. We follow that model. We try to do that. We want to be mission-minded the way that Jesus was teaching his disciples to be. And so I would encourage you to be in prayer now for next year. But I would encourage you to even be in prayer for the next day, like tomorrow, and being mission-minded. And you're going to find out that you don't need to go to Nicaragua, and you don't need to go to Mexico, and you don't need to go really anywhere else. Just right where you're at, be mission-minded and begin to think the way that Jesus did, and begin to see what Jesus did and what he knew was important and what he was sending his disciples out to do. Why did Jesus send out his disciples? Because he wanted the gospel preached. And so that's what we go and do. And so hopefully you can be a part of that, actually going on a trip in the future. Now, even if you don't get to go on the trip, you can still be mission-minded. You can be praying for us. You can be mission-minded right where you're at. You can be looking for opportunities to serve and to clean and to babysit and minister to people that are around you. Okay? And so tonight you're going to hear some stories, some wonderful stories, some funny stories. We've got some questions for them. And then afterwards we're going to celebrate. We brought some cake, some cupcakes, because this is Calorie Chapel after all, and we like to eat with everything that we do. All right, what I would like to do, we'll start off with this. Again, this is not all of the team. This is part of a big team. But I will pass the mic on to them. If you could please tell them your name and your ages. We won't ask Kristen's age because you're not supposed to do that, right? Not supposed to do that. But Kristen, you can actually tell them where you work, because some of them probably don't know. How many of you know Kristen? Some of you, most of them. Okay, maybe you can tell them where you work. But then everybody else, give us your first name and your age. Okay.
I'm Kristen, and I serve in children's ministry, and so I was on this trip to help put on the VBS program for the kids at the church, and I'm Caden's mom.
I'm Caden, and I'm 18.
My name's Melissa, and I'm 17.
My name is David, and I'm 16.
My
My name's Caleb and I'm 16.
My name is Joe and I'm 14.
My name's Nathan and I'm 16.
All right, hold on. Let's see. There we are. Okay, go ahead and hold on to the mic because we'll start down at that end. We'll just kind of work our way back and forth. Tell us what your reason was for even going on the trip in the first place.
I felt like, so I went last year and I felt like the Lord called me to go last year, and it was like a big blessing to me spiritually, and I loved being able to just go out and bless the people of Nicaragua. So I went again this year because I also felt like the Lord pressed it on my heart that my work out there wasn't done. So yeah, that's why I went.
So for me, this was my first time going to Nicaragua, but before I went on the Mexico trip, and it really blessed me a lot to be able to serve the kids, or the people there, and just to be able to paint walls and that stuff, and I wanted to be able to continue in doing that, and yeah, it was really fun doing that.
I think my favorite part, or wait, what was the question?
Exactly why we went.
Oh,
What was your reason for going on the trip? That's Caleb.
I think
All week. Go ahead.
Because I went last year, I felt like I just wanted to go see the kids again, and like I wanted to go see what more we could do.
The reason I went was because just from Mexico and then the last couple ones I've been on, I just I like the work there, seeing what God could do in another country, a third world country.
I went last year and it was so great. So I was like, I'm gonna go next year, and I felt like God was like, go. So I was like, okay.
I went last year as well, and for me, going on mission trips is an easier way for me to connect with God than just staying here, you know, because here there's so many distractions. But when I have like a purpose and I go out and do something, I feel closer to Him, and it's easier to serve Him.
Kristen, yeah, tell us why you went on the trip. Yeah.
And I went on the trip this year, like I said, to host the VBS program for the kids at the church, and then also to head up the mural that was painted on the walls of the school.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll see some pictures maybe or some video of the mural. It was incredible. Even though we didn't get to finish it, it's like, oh, I said we. I painted for like a whole 5 minutes, but I was part of it. We ran into some weather, and it got tough. But we were really, really thankful for Kristen because I don't know, a lot of you know Kristen, but in case you don't, super creative, crafty, easygoing, and she actually added on the trip late after the team had already been put together. And Pastor Heath asked, hey, I want to send Kristen with you guys. And I was like, yes, absolutely. You know, I knew that we were going to be doing a bunch of children's ministry, and I knew that she would be very valuable in that area, and so I was happy to have her, and thought you did great, so hopefully you'll keep going with us. What was your favorite part of the trip? Favorite part of the trip? Yours.
There's a lot to choose from, but honestly, and I mean it sincerely, one of my favorite parts was listening to all of these guys and you guys give your devotions. They were asked to prepare a devotion, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I think I originally said 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some were
10
a little
minutes,
shorter,
an hour.
some were
I mean, you know, it's
some
like-
were a little longer, but
some a little shorter.
some a little shorter. But we started our morning. These kids were up at 5:30 in the morning. We were down in the area where we eat breakfast, doing a devotion before breakfast by 6:30. And then we would end our day after a hard day's work. We would go, and these kids would sit, and they would share their devotions at night too. And just the time that they put into it, and the wisdom that they shared through learning about the scriptures, and just really diving into the Word was very inspiring.
Okay, yeah. Caden, favorite part of the trip?
Well, not in a bad way. It was when we left on Friday
That's a good
night.
way to start. Not in a bad way.
And not in a bad way.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we left on Friday night, our last day was Friday, and that was a youth night. And so all the youth were there at the church, all the faculty too, and a bunch of the adults as well. But they all said goodbye to us, and they were all super happy that we were leaving. No, I'm just kidding. But they were all sad that we were leaving, but they all showed how grateful they were for all the work we did and all the friendships we made, and it was stop giggling. And it was really like heartwarming and bittersweet to leave them because like they feel like a family to me now. So, but they proved that they were grateful.
Yeah, I think for a lot of the team, their favorite, it's like their favorite night was Friday night, being there at the youth night, and so it was a good way to go. So, yeah, favorite part of the trip.
My favorite part was, well, two, like the youth night, yes, but was so there was actually another team down there from Pennsylvania, and they invited us to worship with them, and that was my favorite part because you just saw another team from Pennsylvania, you saw us, and then the people who owned that property. We all just came together and started worshiping the Lord, just a guitar and all our voices, and that was my favorite part. That was cool.
Very sweet time, yeah.
I'd say my favorite part was me and Joe were working in this back room. He was working with a power washer, spraying the walls, and I was scraping the walls. But with with the noise of the power washer, it was almost, I guess you could call it white noise, and it just gave me time to think about like why we're here, what we're doing, and why we're doing it.
Okay, yeah, good. Favorite part of the trip?
I want to agree with Caden because when we left, it was just like they all like made a tunnel on our way going out. They just like hit us on the head, and and one of the people that worked there, his name's Edson, and as I was going out, he like told the other kids to go a little bit harder. So I went out with like my head a little dented. So, but I think just the youth night that we got to be with them. They got to all like have fun. Most of them wanted pictures and they just wanted to have a memory of us because they don't know if we're going next year.
Yep. Joe, favorite part of the trip?
So mine was like pretty much like two. One, the youth night, and then also our adventure in Miami. So with the youth night, it just made me feel very welcomed because as a white boy, I don't speak like I speak
You're-
like no Spanish.
You're white?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Good.
You would have never guessed.
I saw the Dodgers hat and I just figured he's Mexican. Good.
So I spoke like no Spanish, so yeah, I didn't really feel connected to like the people in a certain way, just because I wouldn't be able to like really communicate like Caleb's able to. So in a way, I didn't really feel welcome. But on that youth night, I really felt the love from the people, and just like how much they actually cared about me and how much they're blessed, and how much they had thanked me. So yeah, that was really cool. And then with Miami, I just thought that it was really cool to see how the fact that God wasn't done with us yet, because we all thought that on Friday night that, oh, we're done. We're gonna be done. There's nothing else to do. We could just be done. But then you mentioned that God's not done with us yet until He says that He's done with us. And obviously He meant that because we were stuck in Miami for like 2 days. And yeah, that was fun, and it was really cool to see how He still had more for us to say with the AJ's like 5-hour devotion and Alex's devotion also.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just thought that was really cool. So
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Favorite part of the trip?
So I think they all pretty much covered kind of my main points, what I really enjoyed on this trip. I think VBS was really fun. I was able to connect a lot more with the kids this year. Last year I feel like I didn't really do that good of a job with the kids because like I don't really know Spanish. So I felt like I had a hard time connecting. But this year I went back and I just kind of like just felt like I needed to just like reach out to them, just use like hand signals and stuff. And they understood, and it was really cool because I made like a lot of deep connections with the kids this year. And like Melissa said, I think my favorite part was just the worship night with the other mission team, because we didn't know them. Like they're from a completely different state. But it was really cool because like we all came together and worshiped the same God. Like we don't know each other, but we're all brothers and sisters in the Lord. And I feel like that was just like really cool because it really shows what heaven is going to be like. All like we may not know everybody there, but we will know them because they're our brothers and sisters in the Lord, and we all come together to worship the same God. So I think that was what hit home for me.
Okay, yeah, that was a sweet night. Now with that, with that night where we went to join them for worship, what was I didn't even ask you guys, but what was on your mind when I told you we were going to go do that? After, because we had our Devo upstairs, and then I told you, okay, here's, we're going to go down and do this. What was going on in your mind at that moment?
Well, for me, I saw them worshiping the night before, and I watched them, and I thought it was kind of like weird how they're worshiping because they're all like just like praying randomly during the song. And I know that sounds really judgy. But I was like a little nervous when I saw it because when Pastor Chris told us that they were more Pentecostal, I didn't really know what to think. But really when I got down there, it was just like, it was lacking. It was really just, I realized that I was wrong in thinking that, and that really they are just our brothers and sisters in the Lord, and we all come together to worship the same God.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, what was the most challenging part of the trip for you?
I would say just like lack of sleep and being tired.
Okay.
Was part of it.
Okay.
I also like had a few leg cramps during the week that weren't fun.
Okay.
Like I couldn't walk. But that was a little difficult. But I feel like just tiredness in that was a big factor for me.
Joe, most challenging part of the trip?
So same thing as Nathan, probably the lack of sleep. It was really hard. I'm trying to think. I think on the youth night, who was next to me? Jada, I told her that I'm not going to fall asleep. And then like 5 minutes in, I somehow knock out. I'm so confused and like, yeah, it was funny, but yeah, it was hard to keep myself asleep, especially it was just so confusing because I thought I would be able to stay awake, but I just kept on falling asleep, and it was kind of frustrating. But yeah, that was probably the most hardest thing. Yeah.
Okay. Caleb, most challenging part of the trip for you?
I really don't know because I feel like I want to say like waking up in the morning, but AJ singing kind of woke me up really late.
What a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah, just waking up and like, yeah, just waking up.
Just having to be up early, that early in the morning, and yeah. Okay. David, most challenging part of the trip for you?
I'd say the most challenging part was there was just one night that, like, pretty much I didn't want to be there anymore. I was like, I was just so tired, and like, I just had this feeling in my heart that like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't want to be here. I was like, I just want to go to bed. But then I talked to Pastor Chris, and then it helped me. It helped me a lot. So I'd say that was the most challenging part.
Okay. Yeah, that night. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes and I don't know exactly what it was. David and I spoke about that, but there have been times for me, even on trips, where I get to a point where sometimes I get in that moment where, man, why am I even here? What am I doing? And sometimes I think for me, it's physical fatigue. And that can affect you in every way, even spiritually. We wish it wouldn't, but it does. And, sometimes it's spiritual warfare going on and different things. And so, I don't always know what it is. So just pray. And so that night we prayed together, and then he was feeling better. The Lord, lifted him up, and it was good. So yeah, most challenging part of the trip for you, Melissa?
The most challenging part was my own head.
Okay.
What I mean by that is something happened this trip that happened last trip, and I just got into my head. I was like, why would God allow this to happen again? Like, why did he even bring me if this was going to happen again? I'm of no use to anybody right now. Just why? And overcoming, like, all of that, what my head was telling me, that was the hardest part.
Okay. Yeah, internal struggles going on. Rest of the trip's happening and all the different things, and then we're, some of us are battling even with our own hearts, like, well, okay, what's going on in those questions. So yeah.
Hardest part for me was how many people we had. Oftentimes I would find myself like getting stuck with like no work to do, and when I do that I feel useless, and it's because there weren't enough tools, there weren't enough tasks to be done, and there wasn't enough space, and that was challenging for me because I don't like sitting out and feeling like I'm not contributing to anything. But so I would go and find something to do or help someone out, but that was challenging.
Okay. It's funny that's a hard part for me also, because obviously I love going on mission trips, and I love taking a bunch of students, but the more people I take, the less work there is for me to do. And so I've noticed over the last couple of years, I've taken lots of groups for a lot of years, but never any this big. And the more students I take, the less work there is for me to do. And so I find myself more and more often kind of walking around, and I've got students coming and saying, hey, what can I do? Okay, well, yeah, I was going to do this, so okay, you go do this or go do that, and giving away those things. And so it becomes a challenge for me, but I've got to even realize that, hey, I'm in a different position, I'm at a different place, and it's good to have a lot of students, and that's going to mean that I don't always have a lot to do, even myself, other than pointing people in the right direction. So that's tough stuff. But most challenging part of the trip for you, Kristen?
Well, I was in mom mode on this trip because I had 17 babies to take care of and to count all the time. So one of the most challenging things was you would see me, I was doing this. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, just making sure everyone was there. Making sure everyone was in the ocean and not drowning and not being eaten by a shark. And I only lost one person for a short bit, and that was Mr. Chris. He didn't make it on the train with us in the airport, and I didn't realize until we got off that he was missing. So, but we waited for
Thank
him.
you for noticing.
Yes.
No one else did. I was pushing the guys, like, let's go, get on the tram. But hold on, there's Pokemon to catch. So as we're getting on, I'm pushing from behind. No joke, I'm pushing, I think, Cash. Pushing Cash. Is he here? Where's he at? Yeah, where's he? Oh, right there. Yeah. I think it was Cash as I was pushing. And as I'm pushing him, the door closes on me. Like, literally closed on me. And so I backed up, before it squeezed me to death. And those guys took off and, probably kept catching Pokemon and didn't even realize. And, yeah. It's like, should we take Pastor Chris or catch more Pokemon? More Pokemon. Charizard. I just need a Charizard. So, gotta catch them all. I don't know. Yeah. And then, it was fun. Normally when we go, if, I'd be counting heads. But as soon as I saw Kristen counting heads, it's like, all right, she's got it. And then I would just be like, hey, do we have everybody, Kristen? And, yeah, everybody's here. And so that was, yeah, it was good for me. Yeah, challenging for you, good for me. Okay, do you feel like God said anything specifically to you during the trip, or maybe did something specific in your heart during the trip, or maybe used you in a certain way that you felt like, man, this is really special? Anything like that?
I had a really amazing God moment. It was actually our last day at the Busbys. And so I am not part of Fusion. I am in children's ministry, like I said. I know a lot of these kids because a lot of these kids serve with us, but I'm not part of this ministry. And so I was there for VBS. I was there to paint. I was there to do whatever needed to be done. And we were there on the last day getting ready to load on the bus, and one of the Busbys came up to me and he said, God just put it on my heart to pray for you. And I can tell that maybe you're feeling like you're a little bit of an outsider, that maybe you're not quite fitting in a little bit, so let me just pray for you. And it was just, there was no way for him to know that I was having any of those kinds of feelings. And it wasn't even like grand feelings, but I could tell that I was fighting them. And just the fact that God recognized that, I mean, obviously he knows that, but then used Mr. Busby to just take a moment to pray for me that was just pretty amazing. So
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Caden?
God was speaking to me on the very last night we had. We were stuck in Miami and we had used up all our devos, so Chris shared one with us, and he was sharing about how Paul, at the end of his life, only had one person stick with him, and it was putting it on my heart to not to be the one with only one friend, but to not be the one that leaves someone, like to step away from the faith and to lose love with God. And even though I was there for a whole week serving him, I still felt like I wasn't doing enough for him, so that was him speaking to me.
Okay.
For me, it was all the Devos. How they just all came together. Joe did one on trials, and Joseph did one on whatever it was. And then,
It was life-changing, though.
yeah. They all did one, and how God just put it all together. Like, it just all came to one, how we are one body of Christ, and how we have to draw peace from Him. And I think that really, I am going through something that's really hard, and I was like, I know God's going to get me through it. Like, I just know, but to have all of them have a Devo that comes together, that feels like God was specifically talking to me, that was like, it was crazy, because you could just see how God, like, none of us talked about each other, like what we were gonna do, yet He just brought it all come into one, like summarized it up, and it was just, I think that was my like come to God moment. Like,
That was the Devos, as Kristen mentioned. I think that was the highlight for me. Now, we did lots of cool things on the trip, but when I take a group, so this is my mindset, a little peek into my strange mind. When I take a group, obviously I'm thinking about Nicaragua, or if we go to Mexico, I'm thinking about that week and while we're there and what we're going to do. However, my mind, more than that, is thinking, but what about when we get back? And what about the year in between this trip and the next trip? What's that going to be like? That's how I'm thinking. For me, I'm thinking we train for a couple of months for the trip. But then I see the trip as training for the rest of the year. And so for me, highlights, I'm not necessarily looking at the work that we accomplished, but I'm looking at the work that God is accomplishing in the person. That's what excites me. And this year, I think more than any other year, the Devos were, for me, as a spiritual leader to this team, to the students, as their youth pastor, their Bible teacher, at least for church, a couple times a week, the Devos for me just were they were just top notch. It was so very exciting for me to hear the things that a 15-year-old was saying, or a 16-year-old, or a 17-year-old, or an 18-year-old, because I didn't get saved till I was 20. And I told them one night, it's like, they're light years ahead of me, because when I was 14, 15, 16, I didn't have a clue what any of these things were. And then you have, a 17-year-old student sit down and open up the Word and share for 10 or 15 minutes about, some subject and go in depth. And God was using His Word to speak to my heart as I sat there. It was just so thrilling for me. So that was a highlight for me. I loved. I know that a lot of them stressed out over the Devo, preparing it, but they all did an incredible job. And that was so exciting for me, so very exciting. So, yes, yeah, give her that mic. There we go.
I remember Joseph's. It was about complaining.
Okay, yeah. Okay. All right, so what were we were asking about, was there a moment, on the trip where God was speaking to your heart, and you knew it? Obviously He's speaking to our hearts throughout the week. But was there any special moment where you felt like, oh man, God's doing something special here? If there was, great, and if there wasn't, that's all right, because there was a whole week full of really neat stuff. So,
Not that I can remember.
Okay.
But
okay,
it was just, all I know is that it's a really long week of just pretty much learning about him, especially from my fellow peers, and yeah.
okay, all right. Caleb, how about for you? Was there any moment like that? Any time like that?
It was when we were coming back from the whole trip.
Okay.
Pastor Chris had mentioned or had done his devotion for the very last devotion of the whole trip. I think all 17 of us did one, and then Pastor Chris had ended it off. And I'm glad that he did, because he had told a story about a former student that had died from an overdose. And hearing that, I've heard that story multiple times, but every time it just hits me, because our life can change in a minute, in a second, in a millisecond. And I think what I learned was to keep going, because we don't know when our life can be taken.
Okay. Yeah, keep your eyes. Put your hand to that plow, man, and don't look back. Just you keep plowing forward. Go ahead, Joe.
So the thing that spoke to me the most was probably my own Devo and also Serena's Devo. So with mine, it just really spoke to me, to my heart, as with Temptations, because obviously as a middle schooler going into high school, it's a rough transition. I'm going to be facing new challenges, a bunch of crazy stuff. And already middle school has its stuff that goes on. It's hard things that you have to deal with, and high school is obviously bigger, and it gets scarier, and then same thing with college, it gets bigger and scarier. But with that message that I did, it really showed me that I didn't have to worry about it. I just needed to put my heart into God's hands and just let him deal with it, and I just had to rely on him. And then with Serena's Devo, she was talking about how with our relationship with God, how we need to fear him and in a sense to be his best friend. And there's just one part that spoke to me, which was about the image of God, and how he created him in his own image, and how because of that we should want to be able to get to know him more and learn about him more, and just want to grow and learn about the person that created us, and how it's just crazy how him as a God, as being separated from us, being holy, he decided to create us, us crazy people that just sin like nobody cares, from his own image, from his perfect image. So yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Okay. Yeah, and those Joe he did the Devo. He was the very first one to do the Devo, and just set the standard. It's like I was taking notes. He's like got these 3 points and some sub points, and it was like, oh man, this is good stuff. When I go to teach James, I'm going to make sure I pull out those notes and use those. Good stuff. Suarez, was there any moment where you felt like, again, throughout the week, God's speaking to our hearts through the Devos, and we know that we're there serving him. Was there any special moment where you felt like, okay, this something special just happened?
Yeah, I think throughout the week, the Lord really showed me that that he is the same God that works here in our youth group in California and also in Nicaragua, how he works in both places at the same time. Another thing that really hit home for me was just all the Devos, I think, collectively, they all really fused together and really painted the big picture of what God really wanted us to learn, which was to step out in faith and to just face all the trials by drawing closer to him. And I think the one Devo that really spoke to me was, I have to agree with Joe, was Serena's, how it really does talk about our relationship with God, and how I like the analogy that she did, comparing like our relationship with the Lord to our friendships with the people around us, and how like when you have a best friend, that best friend has seen you through your worst and through moments when it's been difficult for you, and they still choose to be your best friend, right? And it's like that with God, how He's seen all the moments that we've hurt Him and have sinned against Him and have chose to go our own ways, and He still loves us the same and still forgives us. And it's like wronging a best friend. Like, you feel really bad after you wrong a best friend, and you feel the pain because you see their pain, and it's really just really emotional and sad, because if only we could see the Lord's face when we wrong Him and sin against Him, and yet He still chooses to forgive us and use us and start again with us. And I think that's really something that really spoke to me, is because we are just people that He loves and chose to use just to do His work. And I feel like that's something that really spoke to me, because a lot of times we try to make it about ourselves, but in all reality it's about Him.
Okay. We got two more questions real quick. First one is, do you have a story, funny, sad, something that's just that you would like to share with the group? Something that happened, something that you saw, that you just want to share.
I guess I could talk about my friend Jeremy out there.
Okay.
So during the VBS day, after the VBS, we went we were at a park, and the park had a pool, really nice pool. And so what we were gonna do is we're gonna have like a swim day with the kids. We were gonna hang out with them in the pool and stuff, give them rides on our back and stuff, and just watch them and have a good time with them. I think one story I'd like to share is just like my friend Jeremy. I don't know a lot of Spanish, but he knows like a little English. But it was really cool just because like I don't know this kid, but yet I just grew so close with him during that time. And we only had like 3 hours in the pool or so, 3 or 4 hours. And I feel like over those 3 or 4 hours, I really just got to know him, and it was just like, it was really cool because he reminded me a lot of my little sister Sophia, and just how like all the joy he had for the Lord, and just always being like a positive little kid, and just like beaming with sunshine and joy. And he reminded me a lot of Sophia, and so I feel like that's just what I wanted to share is, you never know when you can have an impact on someone's life.
Awesome. Okay. Pass that mic over there. Anything you'd like to share, Joey? Story, sad, funny?
Yeah, so this was pretty funny, but so I was in the children's ministry area where they have the Sunday school for the kids. I was back there power washing, doing my stuff with Nathan and Joseph while they were scrubbing the ceiling. And I forgot, we went out to do something, and we were coming back. And all of a sudden, we see tied to this tree this monkey. And it was so funny. And it was like really cool. So we come over and we start videoing it. Just starts doing all this stuff, and it was like, yeah, it was just cool seeing, because I forget how, like, because here, like, we're not allowed to have like pet monkeys.
Yeah, I don't think that's
Yeah.
right, man.
But like down in Nicaragua, they are, and it's just cool, and it kind of makes me jealous how we're not able to have pet monkeys, because they're awesome.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was pretty cool seeing, and it was pretty funny. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Caleb, any story you'd like to share?
There's so many.
A million of them. Yeah. Just one that stands out to you.
Right, like, I think the day after, so it was Sunday, when we had arrived. Right after service, we were told the day before that we would be going to a lake that's warmed up by a volcano, like an active volcano. And, well, it was a volcano. And we were all, like, when we got there, we were excited because we thought it was just a normal lake, and there was, like, little, like, just cliffs you could jump off. But then when we go, I see this slide. I'm like, ooh, I like slides. So Noah, he tells me, go down. I'm like, okay, it's just a little slide. I go down and it's so like steep that I bolt into the water. And I remember just hearing it loud, just, and I had to like not cut myself, but like burnt myself like a little bit on my arm. And another thing is that how like we all pushed each other to jump off the 30-foot the 30 feet cliff, not cliff, but like a little board going out into the lake. And I think it was me, Joseph, and this random kid that we met over there. He spoke English. All three were just like, let's do something dumb but daring. And we all three of us just started bolting off the little board of the cliff, and we all jumped off at the same time. And Joseph's knee like hit my face so hard, and when we landed, I like as soon as I got up, I like was a little dizzy, and then I just hear Joseph, "Are you good?" And I was still dizzy, just saying, "Yeah."
Perfectly good platform. Perfectly good. Stable. And they went and jumped off of it. Made no sense to me. Anyhow. One story you'd like to share?
Probably just trying to get home, like how we kept having delays. So we came from Nicaragua to Miami, and then we had like a 3-hour delay, right? And then
I
then
don't
we
even
found out.
remember anymore. Yeah, so many delays.
It was
but,
so long
yeah.
I hardly remember the story, but we were delayed there, and then we found out later on that it actually was delayed till Monday, and we weren't going straight from on Monday. We weren't going straight from Miami to San Diego. We actually had to stop in Dallas, so that was another flight we had to take, and yeah, we had to stay 2 nights in Miami. As soon as we got to Dallas, our group was split into 2. So one took the plane about 30 minutes after we landed, and then they left to San Diego. But the second group, which I was in, had to stay another 8 hours because there was a scratch on the door that they thought was gonna blow up the plane. So let's just say it was a very long ending of the trip.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
So like just any story.
Any story. Yeah.
Okay. So when you go on these trips, like you become a family. So we were at IHOP, and it was the boys, and there was too many girls at one table. They're like, "Who wants to go with the boys?" And I was like, "Me," because I just get along better with them, right? So it was me, Cassius, Nathan, Joab, AJ, David, and Caden. And you're like, mission trips, you get tight, right? So Cassius grabs a straw. I grab little pieces of the trash from the straws. Cassius grabs them, sticks them in his mouth. Oh yeah, we had no leaders at our table. And I start helping Cassius by giving him little pieces, and he starts spitballing at our table. Got David in the mouth. They got it in David's mouth. I got Nathan. I think AJ in the neck. And I don't know, it was just hilarious. I don't know, that just stood out to me. Like, it was just funny.
All right. Katie, one story you'd like to share?
We were painting the mural outside the school, and a boy that lives across the street, he's about 16, and his name is Leo. And he came up to us and he was talking to us, and he learned English from just watching TV, like that was it. And he was speaking pretty good, but he was telling me how he used to grow up every day waiting for the bus to pick him up for school. He would look across and he would see the old mural, and it had an old, I don't remember what it said, but it said something there. And he said he was watching us cover it up, and he said it's like a change in my life now, because I grew up with that and now it's gone, but now it's something new. And then he was telling us, he was like, man, I don't want to go to the youth night, I want to hang out with my friends. And someone was teasing him. He's like, you're going, I know you're going. And he's like, I don't know, I want to hang out with my friends. And then he ended up going, and that reminded me of me a lot. Like, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to go to church. But he did go, and he had a great time, and we became pretty close. We sat next to each other, so it was good.
He was a neat guy. Leonardo. One story you'd like to tell?
All right, well, I'll end with a funny story, and it has to do with AJ. So AJ likes to find animals and make them his pet. And so I know that there's one picture up there where you can see a lizard just like hanging out on his back. He had this little lizard friend that just like was crawling, literally like crawling all over him all the time. And then in his pocket, he also had a little pet scorpion that they had painted blue or something. I don't think it was on purpose, possibly. But I think that he might have smuggled those on the bus going back home. We don't really know what happened, but I just know that anytime he had a chance, he was looking for new little animals to find as his pet. So.
Yeah. I think they love the hair. I think that's what it was. Love the hair. All right, last question. Why should someone else go on a mission trip like this?
Well, from the perspective of kids your age, a lot of these kids during training were expressing a lot of their worries. So first, we had a lot of kids that it was their first time flying, first time being that far away, obviously first time being in a different country. Probably for some of them, it was the longest they'd been away from their family. But they all stepped out in faith, and they all were amazing. I have been that's the one takeaway that I've just been sharing with anyone is I am just in complete awe of these kids. Like, I just can't believe how strong they are, and I'm just so proud of them, and it was just an honor, and I mean it, an absolute honor to serve alongside of them, and I've learned so much from each and every one of them.
I agree. Caden, why should someone go on a trip like this, mission trip?
Well, it changes your perspective of a lot of things in many different ways. Like, you see people living differently. You see people that speak differently. They maybe they look differently, but like, we're all humans. We're all the same, and especially as Christians, seeing other Christians from other countries, it's like eye-opening, because no matter how different we may live, how different we may act, how different anything, we're all God's children. We're all made the same on the inside, and it's really eye-opening, because you get to just kind of see the world that God created and help minister to it as well. So it's really good.
Awesome. Okay, Melissa.
I would say it's because God has something to show you. I know you'd be like, but I'm terrified. I don't want to go. Da 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 da. And honestly, I wasn't gonna go. Like, I went last year. Something happened, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go. And then as soon as it like started getting closer, I was actually gonna back out. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go. God, I'm terrified. I don't want to do it. But he kept opening doors where it's like, no, you're gonna go. No, you're gonna go. No, you're gonna go. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, but I was like, you know what? I'm like, God's in control. Whatever, he's got you. Like, even if you're terrified to go, just do it. Because God has you in his hands, no matter what. So, he always has something to show you. It's, and whatever it may be, it's just mind-blowing. Like, it's eye-opening. For me, it was these devos that they all prepared. That was something he showed me. And so, maybe he'll show you something different. So I just say, push that fear away and go, because fear is from the devil, but your faith, you need to go because it's from the Lord.
Probably the main reason you should go, like, just to see, if you've never been out of the country before, like, just to see how other people in other countries live, and watch God work in your heart pretty much watch God work on your heart through this trip, and like the bonds you make with your fellow peers. And it's a lot of fun. So I don't know why my mind's blanking on me right now.
Some good reasons, yeah. Good.
I think you guys, like anybody, or I think most of you guys, I think you guys should go because I I think a year or two. No, I think it was one of the years. This was my fourth missions trip, and my first one was when we went to Mexico last year. I remember that was last year. Um, just every time I go, I get scared that something might happen, that like, and anything could happen. But I kept getting scared of like just being like away from my family, and just friends and family. And when we went, it completely just it just left my mind, because it opened my eyes, because these guys, we speak English here, and we teach English here. We just everything here is in English because it's America. But over there they speak Spanish, and I have somewhat like Spanish speaking, and listening to them, it felt like right at home, because I could understand them, so I got less scared. But even for some of you guys might not speak it. But even then, that feeling that you guys get here watching Pastor Chris teach is the same feeling you're gonna get when you go over there and watch Pastor Mike preach, because the same God that's here is the same God that's over there.
And to find that out, to get over there and find out, oh wait, God's in Nicaragua too. It's eye-opening. Yeah, Joe, where do you think they should go on a mission trip?
So really, for like the bonds and fellowship you can have with other people. So for me, I've been in the high school for a while now. Since my dad's he does worship here, so I've been able to sneak into stuff that I probably wouldn't normally be able to do, like camps and stuff like that. So I've been here for a while, and I've been hanging out with these people that are like 60 times taller than my height when I would be like 4 years old. And so I'd be thinking like I'm like really connected to these people. I've been going here for pretty much my whole life. But it's crazy because with the trips, like I somehow, after Mexico and after Nicaragua, I felt like somehow even more connected. And it's crazy to think that God could still really connect you with people and really create even more bonds and be able to um, just connect each other in ways you never thought you would be able to do. So yeah,
Okay.
I thought that was really cool.
Awesome. Okay. Soros, finish this off, man. Why should they go on a trip?
Well, I have a few points. I think they all summed it up. You really become a family on mission trips, because you start to see sides of people that you wouldn't normally see, and
Good and bad.
yeah, good and bad. But I feel like that's where real friendships start to form, because you see the good and you see the bad, and you still love that person, right? Another reason is like if the Lord's calling you to go and placing it on your heart, go. Because I hate to say it, but we're not going to be in high school for much longer. I mean, even for the freshmen, you're all going to be here for like 4 years. I mean, I have 2 years left now. And so I feel like if the Lord's like, or I know that if the Lord's placing it on your heart that you should go. I remember my freshman year. I felt like the Lord was kind of placing it on my heart to go to Mexico. But I didn't go because I had baseball and stuff, and I just kind of like shrugged it off to the side. But it was last year that I couldn't go to Mexico because of baseball, but he really pressed it on my heart to go to Nicaragua. So I feel like if the Lord places it on your heart that you should go, and he's going to show you things out there that you wouldn't, or not wouldn't see here, but that would be a huge blessing to your walk in your faith. I've been on 3 mission trips now. I've been on both Nicaragua mission trips with the youth group, and I've been on 1 Mexico trip with the church. And all 3 of those trips I've been showed something different by the Lord that has helped me grow in my walk and helped me to have a different perspective on how I see the world and how I view him. So I feel like if the Lord's calling you to go, you should definitely go. I mean, it's going to be scary. I know I was nervous at first, but if he wants you to go, he's going to pave the way, and he's going to give you that peace.
Getting to experience all of that, God doing that work is so exciting. So, okay.